If you love the precision of a pre-made molded polymer clay bezel, but wish it were perhaps a little bit more organic, you're going to love this technique for using extruded strands of polymer clay to give it a bird's nest, woodsy, forest fairy kind of feel. Hi there, Sandy here. So in a video I did recently, I made an offhand comment. I was just thinking aloud as I finished up another tutorial. And then when I finished recording, I went and tried the idea. And that was to use a bunch of leftover strands of 1mm polymer clay extrusion and put them on a pre-baked bezel that was made in the Sculpey bezel mold, which perfectly corresponds to the cabochons in the Sculpey cabochon mold. And I had the idea of using those extruded strands to decorate the pre-baked bezel. And after I tried it, I was just thrilled to pieces. I just love the way this looks and the way it came out. It's not complicated, but there are a couple things I figured out along the way. Now this one you could see I've gone ahead and added some Gilder's paste, I think antique gold, to this one, and I'll try another color on the other one in a minute. But let me show you how easy this is to do. It's easy, but it does take a little bit of concentration. Now because my husband also works at home and he does woodworking down here in the basement where my recording studio is, I often have to prepare stuff for my videos ahead of time, and then when I can grab a minute, I'll come down here and record. What that means is that these were extruded several days ago, and they're going to probably make things a little bit more difficult for me putting this together. But I would recommend that you decorate your bezels pretty close to the time after you extruded your clay. And of course you can make these ahead of time. You could make a whole bunch and not know what you were going to do with them, and then when you had a plan for them, they're all baked and ready to go. You can bake them right in the mold, so you can see you've got these perfect angles and straight edges to start with, and it perfectly fits cabochon. By the way, you do want to have a baked cabochon that fits the bezel that you're going to put it in. This will just make getting the shape a lot easier. So I'll set that aside for a moment. And what I have here is some translucent liquid Sculpey. And don't put a lot on because then things won't stick so much as slide. So just a real thin amount. I like to just open my bottle and then I kind of just grab it from the edges here rather than pouring it out onto something and then I pour out too much. This just seems like a good way to do it. Now I'm going to pick up some of these. This is probably way too much, so maybe just some of it. And you can see they're like breaking off into pieces, so I'll just move those out of my way. And just kind of grab a handful, not a handful, but just a little bundle. And I'm just gonna, yeah, that's a bit too much, so let me pull out a little bit more. It's easier to add more. Tough to if you start out with too much. And I'm just gonna kind of throw that on there. You say, wow, Sandy, that's so complex. I know, right? And what I'm doing is I'm kind of moving my fingers in the center and pushing some of those that are in the middle out to the edge, and then but with a light touch. If you use a really soft clay to extrude, then maybe you do want to let it sit for a little while before you do this, but I wouldn't let it sit for too long. Actually, this is behaving pretty well. So maybe there's a happy medium between letting it sit a while and then it firms up and you don't have to worry about squishing it so easily, but letting it sit too long and it crumbles. So you can see I'm just kind of slowly working this to the outside edge. Isn't that cool looking? That's going to look so awesome when we put some of the metallics over it. You could also, with this one, I put metallic on top and just rubbed it on the high points, but you could also do some kind of liquidy patina, like the Ranger patinas, have them go down into the crevices and wipe that off the top. So you'd have the reverse, more like antiquing. Now you could leave it like this and have more of a bird's nest hanging over the edges. And maybe I did start with a little much, but I really love the way this looks. I just think it's great. And when you're pretty happy with that, you take your baked cabochon. Oh, get in over there. There we go. When you think you're happy with it, then you do some more readjusting. Then take your baked cabochon, center it, and press. And I just, how cool is that? I just think that looks awesome. And if there are areas that you think could use some more, you can pick up a piece, kind of double it over on itself, and then give it a twist so it twists on itself, kind of fold and roll it. And I try to tuck the cut ends underneath, and then you can just put that in whatever place you think it needs a little bit more. And keep doing that until you're happy with it. Like I said, you could have it coming out more and have more of a bird's nest, or I've been kind of trying to have it not be too far over the edges of the pre-baked bezel. Tuck in those ends, it looks a bit neater. You can bake it with the cabochon in, and it took a little bit of work. This one I was able to pop out. I pressed it in the same way I did this one. Especially the bigger one will be easier. The smaller it is, the harder it's going to be to have the room to flex it. But I was able to flex it enough and get a tool or a fingernail under there and pop this out. And when you're done with that, you can decorate it, highlight those cool twisty bits however you like. I'm going to use some Gilder's paste, real simple. And this is just my press and seal over the Gilder's paste to keep it fresh. I've done a whole video on that. And I thought I would try copper on this one that I baked earlier. You can also do the edges of the bezel, so you could almost use, you could use like a scrap clay, you know, something that's close to what you want, a dark brown or whatever, because you're not going to see most of it except in the recesses. I like the brown instead of black. I think it's a softer. Oh, that is pretty. It's a softer look. And there you go. How to make these really cool, organic, kind of, I guess why I like them is they're kind of forest fairy looking bezels for your polymer clay cabochons. And when you're ready, you can pop that back in there. And there you have it. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Happy creating. Bye-bye.